Let me start with something that might be uncomfortable to hear. If you feel behind right now, even though you worked hard all year, that feeling is not proof that you failed. In fact, it might be proof that something else has been quietly draining you the entire time. And once you see what that is, the self-blame starts to loosen. That's what this video is about. So if you've been telling yourself, I should be further along by now, stick with me. Because by the end of this, I want you to see your year very differently. Here's the pattern I see again and again. People reach the end of the year exhausted, not because they did nothing, but because they did a lot. They worked, they showed up, they pushed through, and yet they feel behind. Behind on goals, behind on progress, behind where they thought they'd be. That disconnect is brutal, and most people respond to it by turning inward. They blame their motivation, their discipline, their consistency, but that explanation just doesn't hold up, not when you look at what's really been happening. For a long time, I believed that feeling behind meant I hadn't done enough. So my solution was always the same, right? Push harder, work longer, apply more pressure. And from the outside, it looked like progress, but internally, something was eroding. I was busy, but not grounded. Productive, but never settled. And no matter how much I did, the feeling of being behind just never went away. Here's the first thing I want you to understand. Feeling behind is not a time problem. It's not even a workload problem. It's a pressure problem. When pressure becomes constant, your brain stops measuring progress accurately. It stops registering what has been done, and it becomes hyper-focused on what's still unresolved. That's not a mindset flaw. That's how the nervous system works under sustained load. Let me explain this simply. Your brain is very good at tracking threats and unresolved tasks, unfinished goals, vague obligations. They all register as low-level threats. Not dangerous in the dramatic sense, but demanding. So when you spend months under pressure, your brain doesn't say, look at everything you accomplished. It says, what still needs attention? That's why you can work all year and still feel like nothing counts. This is something I didn't understand early on. I thought productivity was about output. But productivity, as experienced internally, is about resolution. And if your year has been full of open loops, unclear projects, constant urgency, emotional pressure, decisions without closure, your system never gets to stand down. So even progress feels unfinished. This is where most end-of-year reflection goes wrong. People ask, what did I achieve? But their nervous system is still in alarm mode. So instead of clarity, they feel guilt. Instead of completion, they feel deficit. Not because the year lacked effort, but because it lacked resolution. This is exactly where I found myself a few years ago. From the outside, I was building. From the inside, I was always chasing. Every task led to the next. Every win opened a new obligation. Nothing ever felt done, so my brain never registered safety. And when safety is missing, rest doesn't restore you. It just pauses the pressure temporarily. This is a key distinction. You don't feel behind because you didn't work hard enough. You feel behind because your system never had a chance to integrate the work you did. This is where the momentum reset method begins. Not with goals, not with planning, but with understanding the conditions you've been working under. One of the biggest myths in productivity is that progress is linear. It's not. Progress is cyclical. Periods of effort need periods of resolution. If you skip the resolution, effort turns into fatigue, and fatigue turns into self-doubt. Here's what research consistently shows. When people operate under sustained pressure, working memory shrinks, decision fatigue increases, time perception becomes distorted, which means you underestimate progress and overestimate what's left. That distortion creates the feeling of being behind, even when it's not true. So, if this year felt like one long push, if urgency never really dropped, if you moved from one thing straight into the next, then feeling behind is the expected outcome, not a personal failure. This is why just rest over the holidays often doesn't work, because rest without resolution doesn't tell the nervous system it's safe, it just delays the alarm. This was a hard lesson for me. I kept taking breaks, but I never felt restored, and I couldn't understand why, until I realised I wasn't tired from work. I was tired from carrying everything. This is where the overwhelm audit comes in, one of the first pillars of the momentum reset method. Not to organise your life, but to externalise the pressure, because pressure held internally never stops demanding attention. When things live only in your head, your brain treats them as unfinished, even if you worked on them, even if you made progress. That's why effort doesn't always translate into relief. Another factor here is identity pressure. Many people didn't just work hard this year, they worked with a story running in the background that says, I should be further along. That story quietly poisons progress because it reframes every action as not enough. I lived inside that story for a long time. Every task was measured against an imagined future version of myself, so nothing ever felt sufficient, and that kept my system permanently tense. Here's the shift that changed things for me. I stopped asking, did I do enough? And started asking, what did my nervous system experience this year? Pressure, urgency, clarity, resolution. That question gave me answers no productivity metric ever had. This is the reframe I want you to take with you. Feeling behind is a signal, not a verdict. It's telling you something about the conditions you've been operating under, not about your worth, not about your capability. And this is why the end of the year matters so much, not as a deadline, but as an opportunity to reset the conditions before you carry them forward. You don't need to catch up before January. You need to stand down the pressure, because momentum doesn't come from panic. It comes from clarity and safety. This is what we'll be doing through this series, not forcing motivation, not setting aggressive goals, but rebuilding momentum by working with how the brain actually functions. So, if you feel behind right now, I want you to hear this clearly. That feeling doesn't mean you failed. It means your system has been under load for too long without enough resolution, and that is solvable. In the next video, we'll talk about the hidden cost of carrying unfinished tasks into the new year and why clearing mental load matters way more than finishing everything. For now, just let this land. You're not broken, you're not lazy, and you're not starting from zero. You're starting from experience, and with the right reset, that experience becomes momentum, not weight. If this resonated, I'd love to hear it in the comments, and if you want to keep moving forward with purpose and without panic, subscribe to this channel. This series is designed to help you to do exactly that.